In the darkest hour of the night glides a reaper who lurks the graves. Those who've seen him fled in fright, the ones too slow to run, eternal slaves. Hello, it's Cried here today with the Undying Reaper-themed build, Gravelurker. But there is something we have to discuss first. Let's talk a bit about game design, specifically armors with special effects. I certainly believe Elden Ring has room for improvements in this area, which can make the game even better. And I hope to see new additions and better balancing if we do get a DLC. Now, in case you somehow played through the entire game without knowing that many pieces of armor and even weapon grants you passive effects, I have a list for the armor in my gear compendium. Our main concern today is with the armor specifically. I want to draw your attention to the uneven distribution of armors with special effects. If we tally the armors with special effects per slot up, this is what we get. Now, an uneven distribution does not necessarily mean that the system is poorly designed. In fact, skewing special effect armors to one type of gear actually creates a pattern and consistency. This allows the headpiece to be the main piece of gear for most builds to be the piece of gear where players weigh against another headpiece in order to choose a special effect. The actual problem lies in the fact that there are too few armors with special effects in the other categories, particularly the hand category, which, if we take a look at the heaviest armor set in game, is blatantly obvious that the hand armor slot is even lighter than the helmet slot. Remember this point, as it will come up again later. This problem Elden Ring has with armor effects wouldn't actually be as bad as it is currently if there weren't any gloves with special effects at all. But I think that is a lazy solution and an ill-advised one. Therefore, I'm going to talk about how to make things better. Let's take a look at the hand and feet category, as they have very limited number of equipments with special effects. In fact, if we list them all out, these armors are all part of 4-piece sets, where all 4 pieces have special effects. There is one extra hand, the Alberic bracers, and that is only because, for some odd reason, the Alberic trousers don't give a 6% buff for thorn sorceries, unlike the other pieces. If I had to guess, more of an oversight than a feature. Now, why is this a problem? The answer is probably simpler than you think. Let's use the Spellblade set as an example. This set gives 2% damage bonus to magic weapon arts per piece you equip. The issue here is, unlike other armor stats like negation and resistance, the special effect is not weighted towards the expected weight of each piece. What I mean is that this is standardized 2% damage per piece, which is very poor balancing. Why? Because apart from fashion, if we are chasing for efficiency, the first piece you are undoubtedly going to replace with a heavier gear for a much more increased negation is the chest piece. Furthermore, because the way endurance works and how you have to invest into endurance to increase your maximum equip load, heavier gear is stronger because they give you more negation. Now, if I have the stat points and I want negation too, I would obviously change the armor instead of the gloves. Here, I have 2 outcomes using just the Spellblade set and the Bull Goats. As you see here, if we just replace the armor piece with Bull Goats, we only need to replace one piece of gear to get more negation and more special effect than replacing both the greaves and the gauntlets. And both of these are relatively similar in weight. I think you get the point. So the first piece of suggestion I have is to have set bonuses not be universal across the 4 pieces of gear. Instead of 2% bonus each, we can have something like this instead, which will be more interesting to evaluate, as some pieces like the Spellblade's armor won't be as bad as it is now, and it will be harder to replace, as it is now giving a better bonus. As for the other suggestion I have, it is to increase the number of items with special effects. Not only would this make builds much more interesting, people would not directly go for one of the better limited options, especially a glove. And the Gravelurker is basically taking advantage of this issue with Elden Ring's game design by using the Royal Remains set, which is probably a set that's no stranger to the PvPers. Here are the base stats for the Gravelurker. Vagabond is the optimal class choice. While many people opt to swap into Royal Remains set only at low health, it is still a good armor set even without hard swapping because of the effect. and since the only real main competition is prior set due to the other set pieces having more specific effects like the Omen or Crucible set, Royal Remains ends up as one of the best set effects by default as there is a lack of competition. I am using 3 pieces of Royal Remains set here, but you can choose to use only 2 and replace the Greaves with something heavier for 101 poise. As for the Veteran chest piece, I picked it because it has a relatively high poise, but also for the fashion. Next, for the Talisman, I am also running the blue and red feathered Talisman. Once again, these are popular hard swap options, but they can still work well, even without a hard swap, for a weapon like the Grave Scythe. Why is this the case? First, the Scythe isn't a pierce weapon, so Spear Talisman doesn't work, and while you do utilize jump attacks with Reapers, it really doesn't account for enough of the damage to justify using it. Furthermore, the 2 feathered talismans work really well with the Royal Remains set, as the Royal Remains set heals you up to a bit over 18% maximum health, while the feathered talismans work while you're under 20%. This means that you won't overheal. Finally, since scythes aren't great power stanced, I opted to two-handing this weapon. And because of that, I can also run the Twin Bird Kite Shield, which further enhances your power under 20% HP. It gives you a 5% damage boost and a 10% negation boost. With everything combined, it'll feel like you're a boss on a second phase when you're under 20% HP. I also chose Golden Retaliation for the weapon art, just in case you do find a good time to parry. As for a higher level build, you're just going to be pumping more faith, and then eventually more endurance or mind, when you have nothing important to upgrade. Yes, the Grave Scythe is sacred, mostly because of the Black Knife, which I think suits the theme and gives you a ranged option in addition to a crit strike option after parrying. If you choose not to use the Black Knife, feel free to do Heavy Grave Scythe instead, which will allow you to use Lightning Drawstring Grease. I've been quite busy lately, so I'm really rusty, but enjoy a few quick duels. Like and subscribe, and if you want to request a topic or support the channel, please buy my book in the description down below. Man, I'm really rusty. Scythes have good crouch attacks, they're really quick, I think 13 frames, so I really should be doing more of that, but I've been out of the game for quite a while, so I do need a bit of practice with, just spacing and stuff. Plus, I'm not super expert at using scythes. Okay, he hit me on the counter hits there. We'll punish this with the weapon art. Okay, we caught him right at the tip. GG. Stone Club is actually kinda scary, honestly. Because after the update, it's quite quick and it does deal quite a bit of damage with, just a singular weapon. And my damage is not particularly high, nor is my poise, so he can stagger me in one hit. But if I patiently trade, I should still win this one, cause I'm not even under 20 yet. And there we go. I should have attacked. Okay, not a smart trade. I was definitely slow there because he was too far away. Honestly though, one more thing about Royal Remains sets is because there's hard swaps, it makes hard swapping into this set really powerful, which I personally think is a problem, because without hard swaps this set would be much more balanced. Okay, that was dumb. I just wanted to see if I could get a free hit with sword stance. Okay, only one hit there, but it's fine. Okay, a lot of players today playing reactively, which is because without the right weapons it's very hard to pressure. I'm just gonna show him I have parry. I doubt I can actually parry him with one because, yeah, okay, he's playing pure reactively. I sort of wanted to get hit a bit to show the under 20% regen too. And with sufficient regeneration, I won't die in one hit like that. Honestly, I won't lose in a projectile throwing competition because of my defense set. If he doesn't hard swap to Royal Remains, we're fine, but that would be kind of boring. Okay, I got him first. I should play without targeting on the side, honestly. But I've really been too rusty, so... Oof. Okay. You gotta watch out. But what he should do is pressure me right now, because he should be able to tell I'm using Royal's Remain set. And even the Feather Talisman because of the glow, so he really needs to pressure me. But he isn't actively pressuring me, so I have a chance now because look, my counter attack hits. Because my damage is buffed by the Red Feather Talisman and the shield. And nice, GG, we caught him before he hit us. Like and subscribe, and see you next time guys. Thanks for watching.